A couple of weeks ago, I went for a ride on the LRT and MRT at warp speed. Today, I'm going to go at turtle speed, and that can mean only one thing. I'm going for a ride on the monorail. Monorails have always struck me as funny things. I think of them as dating from the 60s and 70s when we had this vision of what the future would be like. You always saw them at world fairs and at amusement parks and places like that, and they were like this vision of the future of how we would be zooming along on these trains floating above the ground. And yet when you see monorails today, they always seem like the poor cousin of the LRT or the MRT. They're kind of slow, they just kind of trundle along, and they don't seem like trains from the future. They feel like they're from, you know, a long distant past or something like that. The monorail in Kuala Lumpur is not a very big line. I think it's by far the smallest line in the metro system here. It's about 8.6 kilometers long and has 11 stations. And since it's a monorail, of course, it's all above ground. It is also easily the slowest of all the LRT and MRT lines. It moves at a very sedate pace. As I said, it's like riding on a turtle. It just kind of trundles along, but it gets you to where you need to go. And an interesting thing about the monorail in Kuala Lumpur, at least for me, is that it does not go in a straight line. It does not even go in a curve. It basically zigzags all over the city. It'll be going straight, and then it'll practically turn around and go in the opposite direction. It does all these 90-degree turns all over the city, so you get some interesting views into different neighborhoods around Kuala Lumpur. The monorail starts at KL Sentral, so that's where I'm heading right now, and it ends at a stop called Titiwangsa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly, and I have no idea what is there. I've never ridden the line that far, so we're going to ride the line all the way to Titiwangsa and see what's there. I don't think I'll be able to shoot any video out the front windshield. I think these trains have a driver. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think they do. In any event, I don't remember ever noticing a window at the front where you can stand, so I might have to shoot video out the side window or something like that. I'll figure that out when the train arrives and I get on board. Just arrived at KL Sentral. An interesting thing is that even though the Kelana Jaya line and the monorail both stop here and you can get from one to the other, it's not a true transfer point. What I mean is I have to now exit from the system and then I have to buy another ticket or pay again to go into the monorail. So if you see on a map, you know that it's a transfer point between the two lines. It is, but it's not a true transfer. You can't just get off this train and walk onto that one. You have to pay again to get back inside. The monorail line was built in 2003, I think. And I think of it as the least popular line, and yet it is still heavily used. If I remember right, it carries something like 64 or 68,000 people a day, which is quite a lot. That's the monorail station over there, and to get to it from KL Sentral you have to go through the shopping mall and just follow the signs. You go up and down a couple of escalators through the mall, come out the other side, and then they built this bridge across the road to get you to the monorail station. I read that when it was first opened, this bridge didn't exist, and people actually had to walk outside and then cross this street in order to get to the monorail. But crossing a street in Kuala Lumpur is never much fun, so they eventually built this bridge, and it made it a lot more convenient. I should say that the monorail has never been my favorite way of getting around Kuala Lumpur. I've used it in the past because it has a terminal station here at KL Sentral, which is convenient, and it goes to Imbi Station, which is right beside Loyat Plaza, and I would often go there for electronics. But that's about it, really. There was nothing else on the line that where I needed to go, and the line is, as I said, pretty slow. It feels slow. The cars are quite a bit smaller than other cars and a little bit crowded. It seems to take a long time for the trains to arrive at each station. And I always had this feeling that it was a bit more expensive than riding on the other lines. Every time I included a monorail portion on my journey, the ticket price seemed to jump much higher than normal. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what it felt like. But as a fun thing to do and as a way to see some of Kuala Lumpur, it's great. So let's go ride on the monorail. And there's the monorail platform. And the train just left. It's 10:20, so we'll see how long it takes for the next train to get here. Here's the full line, by the way. That's where we are, KL Sentral. And we're going to be traveling, oh, there's Imbi for Loyat Plaza. The Air Asia Bukit Bintang stop would be very handy. And we're going the full 11 stations all the way to the other terminal station at Titiwangsa, right there. MR11. MR10, so Monorail 10, Monorail 11, all very well organized. I mentioned two things about the monorail, how the line kind of snakes all around the city, plus it's rather slow, and there you can see the train that just left. It's going so slowly, it hasn't even turned the corner yet. Oh, it looks like it left the main line. Maybe that's why it's going so slowly. It's probably heading in for a maintenance or something. Every time I say the word monorail, I can't help but think of the Simpsons episode about the monorail. In that episode, the town of Springfield came into a big windfall of money, and they had a town meeting to try to decide how to spend all this money. And a con artist, this huckster, came into town and he sang a song about a monorail, and he convinced the town that they should invest all their money in this brand new shiny monorail. And of course, the whole thing was a disaster from beginning to end. And to me, that kind of captures the essence of monorails, that this con artist was selling it to them as a part of the future, like modern technology, the latest and best you can get. And yet, it's kind of a boondoggle. A lot of city governments seem to have spent a lot of money on monorails back in, I don't know, decades past, and they never quite delivered on the promise. Here comes the next train. The turtle, I'll call it. Here comes the turtle. It's about 10:30 now, so it's been 10 minutes since the last train left. It just cracks me up watching it slowly creep in. I can't help but feel like I could walk faster than that. And it just has a comical look about it, the way it straddles the line. And there is a driver at the front there. And people always get caught waiting way down at the far end of the platform. this door suddenly closed. So something's wrong with that door even. I never saw that before. Here's the driver, and I guess he was in the compartment at the other end, and he actually has to get up, walk to the other end of the train, unlock the door, and then go in there to drive. is my monorail train. Oh, and there goes the driver. He had to leave from that end of the train and then walk to the front and get back into that compartment. So every train needs 2 driving stations. That can't be very cost efficient either when you think about it. It's like having a car with 2 sets of steering wheels, gas pedals, and brakes. Would you look at that? I never ever noticed that before either. How this huge section of track switched over from the left side to the right side after the train left. I never knew how they handled the flow of trains going in both directions, and I guess that's how they do it. Well, learning this made the whole trip worthwhile right there. So that was it, a ride on the monorail. I don't think I can put that into hyperspeed because it was a little bit like riding on a bus. You know, it was really bouncy and my camera was thrown all over the place. So I think the video will be very, very bouncy and hard to watch at high speed. And the stabilization is broken in this camera, as I've mentioned many times. Yeah, it was a little bit like riding in a bus and a little bit like riding on a roller coaster. Either a fast bus or a slow roller coaster, or a combination of the two. And here we are at Titiwangsa station, the terminal station of the monorail. I don't really know what's around in this neighborhood. Got some tall buildings over here. You know, it's either office or residential. Got a bus station over here, a lot of apartment buildings here, and then a new massive building, of course, going up there. I thought I might take a walk around this neighborhood, but to be honest, I don't really see much point in doing that, unless I see a 7-Eleven where I can get a vanilla Coke, but I don't see one. The trip here, by the way, all 11 stops cost 3 ringgit 60 cents for the whole trip. I just realized that here at Titiwangsa, there's another LRT station over there. Just looking at the map, and this is where we are. So it looks like it meets up with the Ampang and Sri pedaling lines here. So it has a transfer point. Though just as at the other end, you can't just go from one train into the next. You have to exit from the monorail, then walk over to the other station, buy a new ticket in order to go on that one. So the fact that it's a transfer station also makes it a bit more useful, I guess, the monorail. So I don't see anything in this neighborhood where I want to go exploring. I was going to get a cold drink from this machine over here, but it appears to be broken, so I couldn't even get a cold drink. So I'm just going to hop back on the monorail and go back to KL Sentral. And I think what I'll do is try to get a spot on the other side of the train. So for the return journey on the Turtle, we're going to look out the other side and see what Kuala Lumpur looks like over there. Let's go right back into the system, back onto the Turtle. at KL Sentral. When I got on the monorail that time, I noticed that the door did not have a screen on it, so I could actually shoot through the door and then through the front windshield and kind of get a perspective of what's ahead of the train. I don't think it was a very good perspective because it was like a narrow window with all kinds of barriers in the way, and because of the way the monorail moves, I was bouncing up and down and the camera was going all over the place. But I thought I'd give it a try, and maybe you can get a sense out of how the track curves and turns and does all these 90-degree angle turns all the way through the city. That was kind of cool. Maybe. We'll see what the video looks like. Touch and go card to get me out of the monorail. And it also cost 3 ringgit 60 cents to come back. Which makes sense. Same fare, both directions.
Who's a good kitty?
Final stage of my journey. The LRT back to Pasar Seni. I'm right back at Pasar Seni station where my trip on the monorail began. I'm thinking I might have been wrong about the fare though. When I used my touch and go card, I thought I read 3.6 ringgit, 3 ringgit 60 cents. But I just checked on the machine, like a token machine, and it said that same trip would cost 2.5 ringgit. So maybe I just read the machine wrong. Or maybe you get different fares? Anyway, I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, I enjoyed that little trip, especially the first trip where I was shooting out the side window, because you got a lot of nice views of buildings and temples in certain neighborhoods in Kuala Lumpur. And it's a beautiful sunny day, so that was nice. Coming back, I'm not so sure about. I'll have to wait until I see it on the see the video on my computer, because shooting through the front windshield like that may have worked out. It might be interesting, it might be horrible. I don't really know yet. Anyway, short and sweet, a little trip, a turtle journey on the Kuala Lumpur monorail. And I'll see you in the next video. The bonus question for the last video was about insects. I asked you, how many legs do insects have? The answer is 6. By definition, insects have 6 legs. There are a lot of creatures that people think are insects, but aren't, like spiders. Spiders aren't insects, and they have 8 legs. They are arachnids. Scorpions aren't insects either. In the video, I call them insects, but I'm a dummy. Millipedes and centipedes aren't insects either. They might look like insects, but they are arthropods, and they have lots and lots and lots of legs, not just 6. There are other differences about insects. For example, they have 3 main body parts: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. If you look closely at spiders and scorpions, you'll see that they have 2 main body segments. Insects also don't have a backbone. Their skeletons are on the outside of their bodies, not like ours, which are on the inside. And that's kind of interesting because even if an insect was a bodybuilder, you would never know it because their muscles are on the inside too. Even if they had big bulging muscles, you could never see them because they're on the inside of their exoskeleton. One more interesting fact about insects is that they don't have lungs, so they don't breathe like we do. Instead of lungs, they have a whole bunch of tubes on their body, and air is just pulled into those tubes all the time, and oxygen is absorbed automatically. They don't have lungs, and they don't actually have to breathe. Science. The bonus question for this video is about monorails in the United States. Where was the first fully operational monorail in the United States? Even if you don't know the answer, you can probably guess. I kind of gave a hint about that in the video. Put your answer in the comments below. Answer at the end of the next video. Would you look at that? I never ever noticed that before either. Travel tip 23 is about tourist visas. Tourist visas are a little bit tricky, and you have to look at them carefully when you get them. For example, you might apply for a 30-day tourist visa, but when you get it in your passport, it might say something like valid for 90 days. So what's going on there? It turns out that there are two important details about the visa. One is the duration of stay or length of stay. This is how long you can stay in the country. You might have a 30-day visa, a 60-day visa, even a 90-day visa, and that is your duration of stay, how long you can legally stay in that country. But the visa also has a validity period, and it might say valid for 90 days, valid for 60 days, or even valid for 1 year. This is different from the duration of stay. What this means is you have to use the visa within that time period, meaning you have to enter the country within 90 days, or the visa expires. A lot of people get mixed up, and they see valid for 90 days, and they think they can stay in the country for 90 days. But no, that's very different from the duration of stay. So if you get a 30-day visa that's valid for 90 days, it means you have 90 days to enter that country, and then you can stay there for 30 days. So when you get a tourist visa, be careful about that. The duration of stay is very different from the validity period.